Hey, Chrissy. And Angela. Angela, I loved your little message that we're in your hood. I see Jean and Elizabeth and Robin. Those are the four faces I see. Lovely to see you, ladies. This one, I'm actually really excited about this one because the street we're on there's so much good stuff on here that I was actually like, we might fill the whole hour just on the one street. So we'll see how this goes. There's just so much cool stuff. There's so many stories and beautiful, beautiful places on this street. Hi, Ellen. We'll give everybody a second to get in here, but we are we're going to be on the Rue de Varennes, and this is we have gone before. We went to the Musée Rodin, we went to the garden and stuff, I think, I don't know, 6-7 months ago. And I thought, well, why not stop here and we could peek out the window, peek into the window and see the Bourgeois du Calais. But we are here at the Rodin. Oh yes, and thank you, Chrissy. Everybody, make sure you pin Kate's image up to the top. In the right hand corner, you see a little thing, a little blue dots bubble, and hit that, and then you could pin her to your screen. I'm going to turn my video off for now. It's just so in case you get back there, you know to find Kate. It is a beautiful day and it's not too hot. It's in between heat waves. I think Paris is going into this week. I think it's going to be their 4th or 5th heat wave. So I'm kind of hoping that this kind of chills out a bit before I get there in just a few weeks. I'm beyond excited right now. I have so much to do, but yesterday I tackled my bathroom and what seemed to be 4,000 tiny containers of things that you get in those gift with purchase things. Like, why do I have 1,500 Clinique things that I've never honestly used? My mom gives me a bunch of them because where she works, the ladies always give her all the gift with purchase. I also will never need to buy eye makeup remover for literally the rest of my life, and probably could send one up to everyone. But most of those are going all to friends. So, but I'm getting super, super excited. Oh, Terry, you have no idea how much stuff I've donated. Like probably six carloads of a very large car, and there's more stuff to come. But we will go ahead and jump in here because there is so much to cover. But we are on the Rue de Varennes, and of course, as I mentioned, we are outside the Musée de Rodin, which is a gorgeous, beautiful museum if you have not gone before. I will link in the show notes on the website that I'll get up on my website. I'll get up later, hopefully today, a link to the video that we did of Rodin, or you could find it on my YouTube channel. But those doors, like just the doors on this street and the facades on this street are just absolutely stunning. So this is, of course, the Rodin, and then we are going to head down the Rue de Varennes. Right there, you could see, if you look where those trees were, where Kate just was, that is the corner of Les Invalides. So the kind of hiding, if we could peek through above where that street light is, we would see the dome of Les Invalides and where Napoleon is buried. And we will head down here. So we are in the 7th, but this at one point, this was considered the Faubourg de Saint-Germain. And this was, this was way outside the main city. So a lot of the buildings that were created in here were created mostly in either the late 18th century or beginning to mid 19th century. Giving everybody to get in here. But I love this museum. If you have not been, definitely go and check it out. I just actually posted something about it on my Instagram the other day. And if you don't follow me, it's Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge on Instagram. And there's always a little historical story every single day. We see Kate. It's hard to get anything. Those between windows and glass, like in the museum, it's the hardest thing sometimes to get images. Yeah, even just for the garden, Ellen, you're so right. It's really, there's a little cafe out there. It's just a few euros to go in just to do the garden. And there's tons of his sculptures that are out and around in the garden as well. So it's definitely something to check out. But we're going to head down the street. Over there on the left is a fantastic, especially if you are a vegetarian, the restaurant La Pêche by Alain Pessard. If you watched, it was that show, I think now it's called something else, but I'll have what Phil's having with Phil Rosenthal, and now it's called something else. It's on Netflix, but when it started, it was on OPB. And he went here, and Alain Pessard is an amazing, amazing French chef, and he has his own garden where he grows most of the product that he serves at this restaurant. I have not been there yet. It is quite expensive, but I can't wait to go try it out because everything he does is absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I think that actually that I did recently see that show, his original show and the Paris episode's actually on YouTube now. This building there on the right, number 73, this is now, and it has been for quite some time, home to the Kings of Monaco. So you never know, go hang out here and, maybe run into Prince Albert. Maybe Princess Grace stayed there at one point. I bet she did. It's going to be, Kate, it's going to be one of those where we're zigzagging across the street. And the one coming up here, look at this. Like you could just tell by looking at the side that this door is going to be a good one. And this whole, there's quite a few buildings down here in a row. Look at that. Ugh. Give me all of that. I love it. Those shades that they have, on a lot of the French apartments, sometimes they're not so pretty when they're closed, but at night when you have to go to sleep and you need it to be dark, those things are just pretty fantastic. They don't have actual screens in the windows there. So you get all of the bugs. But it is, it's so beautiful. But this is the Hotel de Villega, and it stretches, there's a couple buildings here. It was built in 1713 for Charlotte de Mer. She was the mistress of a gentleman named Antoine Roger. She was an actress at the Comédie Française at 16 years old and the mistress to the Grand Dauphin, who was the son of Louis XIV, who died before Louis XIV, so he did not obviously ascend to the throne. But you know how much I love those courtesans stories. If you've listened to the podcast, those always are fun ones to tell. Then she was a mistress to Philippe d'Orléans, but she ended up later marrying Henri Francois de Soujay. But look at that building. It was, and she also modeled for Anton Watteau, and it is included in one of my paintings that I love that's in the Louvre is the Pilgrims de Citeaux, which is the beautiful painting that inspired Debussy to write a sonnet about it. And I've posted that before with the video, so you get to look at the painting as you hear the music. But the building, it's on the building itself, it is now made up of 3 separate buildings, which of all 3 of them had to be surrendered in the revolution because of course they were owned by the, the upper bourgeois that were at some point attached to the monarchy. I gotta get other people in. And then of course now it's the Ministry of Agriculture. So there is a ton. There's actually, we're going to also go by the home of the Prime Minister, and hopefully they let us through. That one always has high security and you'll know when we're getting close to it. But I've walked by and it hasn't seemed a problem. So if they get weird about filming, Kate, maybe just film the other wall. But there's tons of ministries over here. There are quite a few embassies, and then also the home of the Prime Minister. So here on the corner, just right across there, we're going to come back to this street because I'm really excited about who the street is named after. But right there on the corner, it was originally built in 1769. Sadly, the building, a lot of the building doesn't remain anymore, but Pierre Gaspard built it for Marie Grimond d'Orsay to hold all of his huge art collection. And then it was later taken over by Jacques Just Barbe de Joie, who moved in there in 1836. And I'll tell you all about him because I was really excited when, because of who his son was. In 1948, it was purchased by the Ministry of the Relations with the Parliament. So they need a whole ministry that just is like the mediator between the basically the presidential office and the Parliament. I don't know about that, how that would be. Have you ever tried to debate and get in an argument with a French person? That's got to be a hard job. You get it. There's a lot of facial expressions and a lot of noises, like a lot of them comes out. And also you see that there's obviously, these are some more modern buildings that whole side of the street, on that side street where we'll end up, has a lot more contemporary buildings, which is always kind of sad to see. But we're still, the Ministry of Agriculture is still running there on the side of us. It is quite long and also some work being done. But this is a really quiet area, especially on a weekend. Look at this building coming up. Oh, so gorgeous. I would like to live on the floor with all of the plants and the one above. I don't need much. I just need both floors. But look at that door. So pretty. That one was built for Jean Dufour. Who was the second owner was Joseph Francois de la Croix de Castries, and the Castries family owned quite a few buildings on this street. They made their money in first in Montpellier selling fish. In the 14th century, they ended up later becoming involved in banking and helping fund the some different campaigns that the king was involved in, and he was also in the court of Louis XVI. So if I say somebody was involved in the court of Louis XVI, you're going to know that that's not going to end so well for them. It stayed in the family until the Revolution, of course, and then it ended up being rented to the Duc de Guise, and then the ambassador, who was ambassador to London for a short period of time, he ended up coming back to France, and then he had to leave. He fled off to London so he wasn't going to get killed by the guillotine. But his property was taken, and the Castries family ended up getting it back later on. And now it's the ministry, some of the offices of the Ministry of the Territorial Cohesion is here. But it's a really cool building. Those doors and the railings, all of it. The Rue de Pablo, this is such a great, it's just a lovely street. And I know Angela said this is her neighborhood, so I'm sure you've traveled down this a few times. So you can see we're getting close because you see the police here on the corner. We're getting close to the, but we also have, look at that building, the Hotel de Mazarin, originally built in 1703. It's once stretched all the way across the street. This is the Hotel de Mazarin, originally stretched all the way across the street, but it was cut when they went to build this street in between. They cut it in half. The Duchesse de Mazarin was a niece of the Cardinal Mazarin, another one of my favorite figures. And then they built this amazing building here that it was once where the composer André Jouvelet lived until 1974. But when we get down there, if we don't get in trouble with the lovely gentleman, above the door is pretty gorgeous. I think we'll be okay. I've walked down this street taking photos and stuff before. I don't think hopefully they don't mind. I've already, just even doing this, I was making a long list of places I'm going to go see, hopefully if they're open, for the Patron weekend, which is the third weekend in September. coming up so quickly. I can't wait. It's the best weekend. If you want to get into these historic buildings, it is the best weekend of the year. So here on the left, that blue door, it was originally built for Cousin Louis de Montmorency de Luxembourg. And you can see above the door, it has initials up there of MLC. It is now part of the Hotel Matignon, which is behind us, which is where the president, the prime minister, I should say, lives. It is very funny that you could get this close to this building and this close to Elysees Palace with a camera filming it, but don't try to do this at the American Embassy. They will chase you down with assault weapons and scream at you. So, but you could do this for the French buildings, just not the American Embassy. This was also built for Christian Louis in 1722. It was commissioned by the architect Jean Corton. The budget was so vast and it was much bigger area that he wanted to have this built on. So he had to sell part of it off to James III of Goyon-Matignon. Matignon married Louis Grimaldi. Again, we have another little piece of Monaco here. She was the Princess of Monaco. The part of the royal family of Monaco stayed here during the Revolution until they had to leave. Honoré Camille Lenoir Grimaldi was here for a while until they actually were arrested, and then they came back here and were put on house arrest, and he died here. His son, Honoré IV, sold it in 1804 to Canton Crawford. His mistress, there's another one of those great stories I love, Anne Eleanor Franchi, lived here. She was also the mistress, and this one's for you, Chrissy. She was also a mistress to the Count of Frassin, who was, of course, as we know, the lover of Marie Antoinette. Franchi was born in Italy on the 12th of June of 1750, and at 15 years old, she married a dancer, and because of that marriage, she was able to travel around with him. She went to Venice, which is where she met the Duc de Württemberg. She became his mistress. They had 2 children. She then ended up taking up with Joseph II, brother of Marie Antoinette, and he ended up getting her off to Paris. It was in Paris that she met an Irish officer, the last name Sullivan, and he took her to Asia, where she met Canton Crawford, who ended up having that property, and she moved in there. She met Axel van Fersen, who was the lover of Marie Antoinette. They had an arrangement for 10 years from 1789 to 1799, and she was an integral part in the flight to Varennes, which, funny, we're on the Rue de Varennes. But as we all know, that was when they tried to escape. Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette tried to escape the failed attempt to leave. That Axel was the one who put a lot of that together, but she was also a big part of that as well. And after the Revolution, 1807, Talleyrand took over that building, and then in 1811 it was given to Napoleon. In 1816, Louis XVIII traded it for the Elysees Palace. And then, if you remember last week, I love it when they overflow from week to week. We saw the Palais Gallier. In 1852, it was sold to Raphael du Ferraille, who was a husband of course, Marie de Brignon-Selle, the Princess de Gallier. She lived here alone after his death with her 200 servants until 1886. Then she left for Genoa because, as we said last week, and she got ticked off at the government. It was given into the Emperor of Austria, Francois Joseph, who had the embassy built there for a short period of time. But it was after World War I. In 1922, the state bought it. And in 1936, it became the seat of the president of the council, which that title later turned into prime minister. But it is one of those ones that is open that weekend. So I can't wait to go in because I love that all of these amazing stories of these ladies cross over into it. And so I can't wait to go check it out. Look at that door. Such a good one. This is where Virginie, a more modern woman, Virginie Ariot, Soleil, she lived here. She was known as Madame de la Mer. She was the daughter of Olympe Ariot, who owned the Louvre department store, which is what they are currently doing a ton of work on. That's right outside on the Rue de Rivoli. She ended up winning a gold medal in 1928 in sailing. And there's a special award given to the female sailors of France that is named after her. But I like that she's Madame de la Mer. It's such a lovely day. And I think right across, we should be right about number 53. It's one of those streets where the numbers are strange across from each other. But here, number 53. So I titled this one about the authors. And so it was all mostly because of this building here. We'll come across a few other stories of authors, but the American Edith Wharton lived here at number 53. There's a plaque there. She lived there from 1910 to 1920. I haven't read any of her books yet. Chrissy, have you read them? I need to. I have some of them on my Kindle, so I gotta get that. I gotta get on top of those. You know, after I finish I think the Marcel Proust Remembrance, it says it takes 80 hours to read it. I guess I have a long flight coming up. But she lived here. She ended up her later years in 1907 and 1910. She lived at the Place des États-Unis, which is where we ended up last weekend's walk. I didn't even plan this, but one of her most famous books that she read, even if you haven't read her books, Age of Innocence, which is that fantastic movie that has Michelle Pfeiffer and Daniel Day-Lewis. She came over to Paris. And she later said, "Je l'ai dans mon sang," which is, I have it in my blood. So I know that as soon as I saw that, I knew all of you could appreciate that one. She had a relationship with a gentleman, and this is kind of one of my favorite stories about her, named Morton Fullerton. He was an American journalist. He came over to France in 1890. She was actually married. He was not. They met and they started sending each other, they would send each other notes and letters. And back then, the French post would deliver like 3 or 4 times a day. Same thing with the US Post. They delivered multiple times a day. So it was kind of like the old-fashioned text messages. It just took a little bit longer for them to be delivered. But they would send each other these really lovely little notes. And one of my favorite things is that she would write a note to him and they would meet in my favorite place in the Louvre. And she said that she would meet him underneath the statue of Diane. And so that statue is the one of these Diane de Versailles, which is in the Salle des Caryatides. And so every time I walk into that room, which I love, I always think of Edith Wharton meeting her lover, Morton, there in the Louvre. But she lived here. She lived here till the end of her life. Not at this building, but she lived in Paris. And she's buried just outside of Paris as well. But I need to get that high. I need to get some of her stuff high on my list. Look at that. Look at those. Ugh. Which do you love more? The gates or the doors? I don't think I could choose. Some of the gates, and we're going to see a couple of them on this walk that are just gorgeous, but look at, ugh. And then a new place over there. And coming up here, we have, you might recognize the Italian flags there. There's both buildings. On the right, we have the embassy. And then on the left, it is the Italian Cultural Institute, built in 1776 for the Marquis Simon, the Alexander de Gauffet, and that is the Hotel de Gauffet. In 1792, it was seized and became the Minister of External Relations until July 1797. Talleyrand moved there. When it was a Minister of External Relations, a gentleman by the name of Charles Delacroix worked there. He was the father of who? That's right, Eugène Delacroix. So he lived there. I did see online where somebody mistakenly says that Eugène Delacroix was born there, but he was not. But look at that. Oh, so gorgeous. But it was at the one that's behind Kate that is where Napoleon was introduced to a woman named Madame de Stael, which on January 3rd, 1798, there is a plaque dedicated to that on the other side of the building. This building goes all the way over to the Rue de Grenelle. But this is where they met. I need to do a podcast episode about her. She's been on my list. She was a woman of letters, but she was very outspoken, and she held salons. And then they met, and then ended up being that he exiled her out because, at first he thought, oh, she's very interesting. She's got quite the head. You see there, Bonaparte, Madame de Stael. And then he didn't like that she was a little too outspoken and had her kicked out of the country. But across the street is the embassy. It was a Hotel de Bassigny done by Jean-Sylvain Courtauld. It's neoclassical, and it was actually traded with Italy for what is the French embassy in Rome. So they did a little flip-flop. They gave France something in Rome, and then France gave them this for their embassy. It is hard, Chrissy. I have people that when I record other people's podcasts, if I'm a guest, and they'll sometimes ask me what my favorite time would be to go back to, or who my favorite person in French history is. And of course, usually I always say Rose Valland, but it's also impossible. It could change 45 times in a day. Look at that. So beautiful. And those columns. Oh. This was also right behind. Lovely green door. Gotta love the lions. This is where the wonderful Countess de Soujay lived. We did an episode about her. She was really fascinating. She was in her 50s when she started writing just these little stories for her grandchildren, and then they ended up getting passed around to friends, and she was published. And this was quite a long time ago. We're talking, like 18th century. She ended up being published. She was one of the first women to ever be able to be published in her name. This is long before Colette. She was able to be published in her name, and she actually made the royalties directly from them. Her husband owned a bunch of railroads and the whole railroad system, and he ended up meeting the gentleman that now when you go to the French airports and any of the train stations and you see the relay newsstands that are in all the airports, those basically he created those newsstands. And because of his friendship with his other man that ended up starting the relay, he was also a publisher. His publishing house still stands in France, one of the oldest ones in France. He was the one who had all those stories published. But her stories, there's a statue of her, a little bust of her, kind of hidden in the bushes at the Jardin de Luxembourg. But just, you think just like Julia Child, it's never too late. It's never too late to do that, to do something. Follow your dream. Ugh, I love it. It reminds me of the door. That it's not what the door looks like at Julia Child's, but every time I go by there, I always touch the handle thinking, did Julia Child also touch this handle? It's probably been replaced since then, but I just like to think of it that maybe it was. Get the beautiful door. I think we're right about where there is a building coming up here that's kind of stretches. It's another one of those ones that stretches across two streets. It was known as the L'Hôtel Narbonne Palais, built by Louis Veuillot. It is it was a Catholic, it was for a short period of time, a Catholic building that held some of the offices in the ministry. It is now called the Paul Claudel Dulot. We don't like Paul Claudel because he was the brother of Camille and threw her into the crazy farm and basically took everything that she had. So we don't like him. But it's a private high school. It's two buildings that actually come together. And it's a private high school even to this day. And this is Rue de Bac. We're going to keep going down. Rue de Varan, I think it's about another block. And Rue de Bac has some really actually great restaurants down there. And of course, I'll talk about one of the other most popular thing that's on there because we'll touch on something that's kind of related to it. That's not that bad of a more modern building. Got some great windows. This is not a neighborhood to try. I think the last time I was here, I went to the Rodin on a Sunday morning before it opened. And it was, I think it was an early spring day and it was really hot. And I was in the Rodin for quite some time. And then I left and I thought, oh, I'll just walk towards home and stop and get something to eat. I think I walked a very, very long time. Look at that. What's that? The snakes on there. Almost like the one that's the best one on Rue Bonaparte, where Manet used to live, where he was born. I hope it's not too hot for wherever you guys are all today. We are going to be 101 degrees today here in Portland. I'm soaking up all that air conditioning as much as I can before I do actually have an air conditioner in my apartment in Paris, but I'm just going to suck up all the AC as much as I can. Here, look at this beautiful one. Ugh. What would be your favorite color of door? I think you know the answer to me, or to me, but it's my answer. This is the two buildings that are part of that private high school. Of course, Karen, mine is red. Yeah, blue is pretty good. Especially when they're like the lacquer ones, when they're really shiny. Oh, I don't think there is a bad door. Especially when they have these great little knockers on it. And I think this is the little street we take a right on, Kate. And this is the Rue de la Planche, which is named after Raphael de la Planche. He was a Flemish upholsterer and tapestry creator. His father was recognized by Henry III, who was the King of Navarre, who would become Henry IV, King of France. That's where it always gets confusing when you're trying to, it makes it harder to understand. But Henry III of Navarre, his son Raphael, who the street's named after, created a tapestry workshop near here, which was just right around the corner where we said the school of Paul Claudel was. The tapestry factory was there in the early 17th century. And there's another, the street that we'll end up on also has to do something with tapestry and also kind of has something to do reminiscent of Dior. So all these things about this walk today, Chrissy, that made me think of you. And we're going to come through. And when we did actually kind of walk on part of Rue de Pablo, quite a long time ago, well over a year ago. But we're going to come through the back side of this lovely little garden. And hopefully we could get out. It is the Square de Maison Étranger. It is a nod to the former mission that once stood here in the 17th century. It's a pretty little square. Is that tree not looking so good? There's already a few, my friend Catherine outside her window, she has a tree that she always calls the what is it, the bird and the canary, you know, the canary in the mine, where it's always the first one in August that the leaves start to kind of, you know, turn brown. It's like, no. But then we could have the side of my favorite building on Rue de Seine. We could have Ivy Watch 2022. There we are. Created in 1939. And this is really neat. We might be able to see, last time I was in here, the part of the wall was really covered up with like a lot of plants and stuff, but there is a really pretty wall in here that was painted in 1995 by Patrice Chanton. Hi, Judy. No, we're not near Rue Claire. We're actually closer to kind of almost towards the edge of Saint-Germain. So we're a little ways, we're going to be really close to the Bon Marché here in a minute. We'll walk past the Bon Marché. That is actually a Wallace fountain. He did more than just the one with the caryatides. And this year it's the 150th birthday. And so there's supposed to be a bunch of stuff in September. So I will make sure to bring you all of that exciting stuff. There's supposed to be something for a few days on the Champs-Élysées. I think like a photo exhibit and a bunch of other stuff. They did move one of those original ones that remain. They moved it to the Carnavalet. Here you have a little bust of the gentleman that lived across the street. This is by Gambier in 1948. It is the bust of Chateaubriand. I just love saying his name. And it has, oh, look, the wall's not painted anymore. Oh, kind of. Needs to be touched up. And we'll go across the street here and take a left, and you see where these wonderful big huge red doors are. The one to the left is where Mr. Francois René de Chateaubriand lived. He lived here from 1838 until his death on the 4th of July, 1848. He was one of the major authors of the Romantic era, that he really inspired most of the artists of the Romantic era. He was first in politics. He was the ambassador to the UK, Sweden, the Holy See, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well. During the French Revolution, he left for the US for a short period of time, going to Boston and Philadelphia and New York. But there's a little plaque there dedicated to him. Look at that red. Gotta love all those fun stores, all those goodies in those stores. But we're very close. When we get up here, we'll take a left, and that is the Bon Marché, and you also have the Épicerie, which is amazing. I stayed away from there for a very long time because I just thought I'm going to go in there and find way too many things I need to buy and bring back. And then I did finally go in the spring, and of course I bought a bunch of things. But you have like, there's basically just like a long case that just has French butter in it, and you could get the Bordier butter, which is the best butter in the world. You could go, they have like, oh, this is the Church of the Miraculous Medals. I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we get down to Rue de Pablo. But it has like, you could get amazing salts and anything French. You could get all of the different French chips you could ever want, every truffle flavored crisp you could ever want. It's pretty fantastic. That is where you also have I just was actually talking to friends last night because we were laughing about the American section in like, if they have an American section, like the Epicerie and some of those places, the American sections in some of these big fancy stores, they always have an ungodly amount of marshmallow fluff. And I took a picture of it one day and posted in my Instagram stories and said, does anybody actually eat this? I've never had it in my life. I've never seen anybody have it. I don't even know if I've seen it in the grocery store. And there was a few people that said that they had it when they were kids, like on a pie. But it's funny that I think French people think that Americans eat nothing but marshmallow fluff and peanut butter. But let me know if you guys have had it. I'm sure it's delicious. Is there maybe some way you could like incorporate it into like a hybrid s'mores? Dip your chocolate and graham cracker in it? I don't know. And we're going to go over here. I like a Snickers. Oh, wow, Heather. Yeah, I've just never even had it. Oh, Heather, that might be fighting words for Chrissy if saying that it's the equivalent of Nutella. But this, we're going to pass through this little garden here. Of course, you have the Bon Marché there on the right. On the left is the Square Busico. It is named for the founder of the Bon Marché, Aristide Busico. He founded the store in 1852. He created it in 1870 is when it was opened, or sorry, the garden was open. And we could just kind of pass through here, the bottom side of it, and come back out on the other side on the Rue de Pablo. This is if you come here, in around lunchtime. Oh, is that a little mister? Come here around lunchtime, you see a lot of the workers from the Bon Marché having their lunch here in the park. They have actually they've installed quite a few of those around the city, those little misters, especially in that area around Leal. And then also on the at the Perry Plage there along the Seine that goes until I think end of August this month. But this is a lovely little park. The owners of the company, when they created the Bon Marché, did a lot to give back to their employees. They set up a fund that if they had an employee that ended up, having medical needs or anything like that, they would help the employees. They even created kind of like a little city, kind of a little bit of a Willy Wonka kind of things, created this little city of housing for them to live in. They were really, really great to their employees. And we'll take a right, but if you guys are ever down here, and I'll post the link also to the video that I think we have them on video, there is a really fantastic little kind of somewhat hidden church, or a church that's just right across the street that you would never think that is there because it's on that very, modern looking building. You have the Bon Marché, but the Bon Marché is pretty amazing to go look at inside, even if you're not a shopper. Of course, everybody talks about the Galerie Lafayette because of the beautiful ceiling and printemps, but definitely go in here and check out because they do, in the center of it, they do like a rotating kind of art installation that they do around the escalators, which could be actually really, really cool. And then of course, Christmas. I can't wait to bring you guys all of the wonderful Christmas stuff all the time from Paris. It's going to be so much fun. Look at those windows. A little bit of a Tiffany blue there. But the Épicerie is coming up, and it just is. You could go, it's also a really great place. You could get, you know, they have a lot of like deli-like things. So you could go in there and get some salads or tarama, which I love. All of that great stuff. June, I will be in the 6th Saint-Germain, bien sûr. My favorite. I am minutes away from my favorite places and very favorite people. So I cannot wait. Absolutely can't not wait. It's down to a few weeks, and now it just feels like it's getting real. Oh, Ellen, the church is the Église of Saint Ignatius. It was built in 1855. I need to go in there again because the last couple of times I've been in, it's been under construction. It's a very tiny church. The chapels, side chapels are small, but really beautiful. And all the walls were covered. So I need to go back in there. Oh, Gerard Mulot. Yes. I always, cause that's in between Le Bon Comptoir de la Terre and de Marche, and you walk by there sometimes you could just smell the croissants and the bread. It's like, oh, and you go to Marseille Saint-Germain, you get your cheese and your pate, and you get some wine, and then you go to Mulot and get your baguette. And really, what else do you need in the world? Not much. It's pretty much has you covered. But do not miss going to the Grande Épicerie. It's also a really great place to get gifts to bring back to people if you want to get just little things. It's a great place to pop into. But come with, you know, I did it and my bag was already full because I bought too many things too many books at the Rodin Museum. And then I decided, no, I don't need a bag. And then it was disastrous trying to walk home. So we are now on the Rue de Pablo. It is named for Jean Duval, who was Bernard de Saint-Thérèse. He was a Latin bishop of Babylon, and he was a founder of the mission of the same name. And it is a little bit wider street than we were on. And so a lot of this is a little bit more newer looking, but we're going to come past the Jardin Catherine Labouré, which is, I think, right here. Or no, this is not it. You know, Judy, how long are you going to be there? One great thing about Airbnb, if you're going to be there for at least 28 days and you put those dates in there, Airbnb will open it up where you get this whole vast selection of things that you didn't know were there because they only rent them for 28 days. Ground floor, depending on where you are, I always avoid a ground floor in the past just because you can't really open the windows, just because, you know, you don't want somebody popping in there, especially like if you want the window open a little bit at night, unless you have bars, of course. Here's where carrying, Balenciaga. But yeah, if you need some help or you are finding some on Airbnb, you know, you can send me a message and I'm happy to look at them. I always kind of have a little, you know, I always check through the comments and some of those things just to make sure it's a good one. I've always had very good luck. Yeah, Heather, I think, I think we all know who that was. Oh, could you even imagine? I've always had really good luck with Airbnb, except for the time the ceiling leaked and they didn't seem to care. But I've always had pretty good luck. I know that there's also other stories out there of, you know, things that haven't been great, but yeah, you could always send me a message, and if you have some links, I could take a look at them. But if you're going, especially if you're going to go, if you're going by yourself, Judy, I always tell people to stay kind of like in the 6th in Saint Germain or Latin Quarter. It's just it's a little bit safer. And if you're there as a woman by yourself, I always feel extremely comfortable there. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. Oh, look at that fantastic Metro sign. Look at that. Interesting little addition of the cross there, kind of the area. Oh, and look at that. Another Egyptian moment of Paris. So we'll come across this garden. And I mentioned before about the Church of the Miraculous Medals. So from 1806 to 1876 is when Catherine Labouré lived. She was sent to a convent that was on the Rue de Pablo, which is the street we kind of passed by. And in 1830, she was there. And on July 18th, she started having visions. And that was her first vision. And it was of the Virgin that came to her. And then she came repeatedly to her, showing her this medal, saying that you need to create this medal. And so, of course, she told other people in the church about this, and they thought she was crazy, which I'm not really sure why. If you had that conversation with a vision, that's kind of your audience, because that's kind of like, how many stories do we have of these people that later became saints that had a vision of, the Virgin Mary or God or somebody speaking to them? It's kind of like, really, you guys didn't understand her? But she had this vision. So in 1832, they began constructing the very first medals that they had. They were very specifically done. You could go to this church now. It was during the cholera epidemic that they had these medals that were created. And all of these people that held the medals were reported that they were being cured, miraculously cured. So that is when they become being known as the Miraculous Medals in 1834. On it, if you look at it, and I'll post a picture on my website, it is the Virgin Mary in the middle, and behind her are 12 stars. And it is said that those 12 stars is what inspired the European Union flag. So when you see the blue flag with the 12 stars around it, that's kind of where they got it from. And if you go to the church, the Notre Dame de la Medie Miraculous, her body is there, and it's one of those saints that is uncompromised. So she is laying there looking just as she did the day she died, in this glass case. It is a small church. It is pretty amazing to go into it. I hit it at the wrong time. When you do go, make sure you keep an eye on the hours. They do close in the middle of the day. If they are doing a service, they really don't want you roaming around in there. I got there about 10 minutes before they closed, so I didn't get to have a ton of time. They do, of course, have a gift shop, because they sell these medals in every form you could imagine, and necklaces, as rosaries, as everything under the sun. And you could buy them there, and it was a little too much like Disneyland. The people were kind of like in a feeding frenzy, because the gift shop also was closing to try to buy everything they possibly could. But it's a small little church. It's really, really neat. And they have a whole bas-relief story kind of her life on the outside of it in the courtyard. It's really interesting. I still wish, even though I'm not Catholic, I really wish I would have bought like a rosary at Notre Dame, just so I could have it from Notre Dame. But I'll get it again in less than 2 years. Thanks, Heather, for joining us. And then we'll down here, we'll eventually get and turn back onto, and we'll be back to where we started. Thank you, Sharon. You guys have a great Sunday. Lots of construction. This is definitely the busier part of the the street. And there's Kate. Which number are we at about? Oh, we're on the Rue de Pablo. I was like, some of this doesn't look familiar. Well, we could turn. Cerveau, of course, is named after the wonderful pottery that was originally that was another company that merged with one that was created by Madame de Pompadour. Thank you, Elizabeth. Which street is this? I think we somehow got onto a wrong street. My fault, I'm sure. Well, I'll just tell you about the street that we were going to end up. The very small street that's really close to the Rodin is it is called the Rue de Barbe de Joue. And I was really excited about that street because I was like, wait a minute, I know that name. And it's because it has something to do with the Louvre, of course, but it was named after Jacques Juste Barbe de Jouy. De Jouy ended up having a clothing manufacturer that he created the Indian fabrics, which is why it was called that, because it was this original fabric that was actually originally found in India. It used a lot of red in the dyes that they created these images on there. It would later be known more of what we call toile. So that French toile that we love so much, that, you know, Dior loves so much. I just read this amazing book that kind of referred to that. But that's why he changed his name. He added the de Jouy because it was the Toile de Jouy. His father originally had the company. He ended up taking it over. He had a company that was with another gentleman in just outside of Paris, just near Versailles. It was at the source of the Berre River. And they had this factory there, and it was incredibly lucrative for quite a few years, and then it started to decline when the construction of fabrics and everything like Lyon became a huge source of that, and it just was a lot easier for places to create it around France. So it started to kind of go down. But Jacques' son was Henri. He was born in 1812. He was a curator of the Louvre from 1852 to 1863. He became the curator of the National Museums from 1871 to 1879. It was during that period in May of 1871 that he was one of the gentlemen, with the other one being Bernard de Soujay, who saved the Louvre during the Commune fire when those bad doers decided to toss oil into the Tuileries. It burned down the Tuileries, and the fire started coming in through basically what is considered the Grand Gallery, started coming into the Louvre. Barbe de Jouy was there to wrangle it with the fire commander, Bernardi, and they were able to stop it. Unfortunately, Bernardi was killed in the action, in the fire, unfortunately. But Barbe de Jouy, he ended up becoming the director of the Louvre for 2 years in 1879. And when I saw that name, I was like, ah! And I thought it was named after Henri, but it was named after his father, who still did something pretty cool. But, you know, my love of anything attached to the Louvre. but he also lived, his father lived on the corner. He grew up on the corner, but it was also on that street that Jean Levin, the amazing fashion designer that created the House of Lanvin, which is the oldest fashion house, I was just checking the name, fashion house in the world, because it was fashion. You have places like Hermes and Louis Vuitton that are considered sometimes older, but they started in hard goods, not in fashion. So Jean Levin is amazing. She did everything before the woman that shall not be named, that has the 2 C's in her thing, but she did it all before. She did the black fashion, black dress, little black dresses. She did the sportswear. She was one of the first designers that ever had a perfume. She did all of those things that this other woman gets the credit for. Jean Levin did it, but Jean de Levin didn't care. She just wanted to read her books about art, be with her daughter, and just design amazing things. But she lived on that street. The building is no longer there. It's now one of those more modern buildings we saw. But what's really cool is that 3 of those rooms you could see now in the Musée des Arts Décoratifs, which is a fantastic museum. Robin, I was telling you about that one. The Musée des Arts Décoratifs is there. It's in what is considered the Palais de Louvre. So it's on that Rue de Rivoli side, but there's 3 rooms in there that are pulled right from her home. That was this very lavish, beautiful room, home. And it's her bathroom, her boudoir, and bedroom. And that is created with her signature colors. So she also created basically a textile factory that she would create her own fabric and her own colors. And so there's a very famous color. It's called Lanvin Blue. It's a kind of close to what you would think of as a cornflower blue. If we remember, I only remember that because of the color crayons when you were a kid, and it would say cornflower or corn. Is that right? But it's just the whole thing. It's like, I just want to like jump over the little plexiglass thing and live in there. And, I could be there all day in the Musée des Arts, tell people about Jean Levin, just live there. Not a lot of privacy, but it's really, really cool. And if you go to the museum, you go to the top floor and you go all the very way to the end, which is in the Pavillon Marsan, at the end of it, which is actually pretty cool, because that was originally, the Palais des Tuileries, nothing remains of that, but there actually is, because at the far end of the Louvre, the Pavillon de Flore, which is on the Seine side, and the Pavillon Marsan, that's on the Rue de Rivoli side, those were technically the Tuileries. And then it was, the Louvre was built to be added into that, but technically they are still there from the Tuileries, and that is where Louis XVIII would live. But you could go into them, and the Musée des Arts Décoratifs is absolutely amazing. If I could see if we have a pretty good signal, I'll test it out, and maybe I'll have to do a little live walk from there, because it's not a very busy museum, so it's kind of nice to be able to get around in there. But now we are around, we're still in the 7th. We took a detour, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's always great things to explore. Now we're on the Rue de Pablo. Sorry, Kate. She's a trooper. And next week, she's going to be heading to do some photographing a super cool thing in Germany, and so we won't have Kate, but I will do a live thing again, that we do some little question, give you some more tips and tricks and some of that fun stuff. I don't know if I'll do one the week after, because that is right before I leave, and so we'll kind of play it by ear. But we're here at the Rue de Babylon, and when we get to, let's see, what number are we at? I think it might be this building here. Is this on the left? Is that the Barbe Joue? Or maybe that's it right there. Is that 50? 59? Yeah, I think we want to go up just a tad bit more. See, it's always like, it's so confusing because it's like, it's 59 on one side and 72 on the other. But sometimes they end up like linking up. Then they'll all of a sudden just like, I think it's because like one building is like super, super long, like the Ministry of Agriculture, where it's like 4 buildings and now in one. So it just gets it, you got to stay on your toes. It's not so easy because you just think like, oh, well, I know where 42 is, so I know where 41 is. Nope, not so much. Okay, I think it's up here. It's the one right after the little garden here. And it was kind of another, so there was 3 things that I wanted, like specifically why I picked this route. And this is one of them. The other was Jean Levin and then Barbe de Joue. But this building right here, because it also ties into last week, and I didn't even plan that. Again, I was pretty excited that it worked out this way. You could see a name on that plaque, number 55. And this is where Yves Saint Laurent lived. And I don't think Susan's here because Susan loves Yves Saint Laurent, but this is where he lived. He moved here with his partner, Pierre Berger, from 1972 until his death. This is where he died in 2008. Could you just imagine getting inside and looking at that? Their art collection, that's another thing I've added to my list of things to obsess and try to find out about. They had this incredible, incredible art collection and objet d'art, and just insane. And they had a huge auction after Yves Saint Laurent's death and also Pierre's death. And a lot of it and was also donated. There's a couple paintings I've come across in the Louvre that was originally his collection. Unfortunately, they don't always put the whole provenance of every, on those little plaques. So you have to kind of find out, figure out, but I want to see what else that they had that we could find in museums, because they had an insane, insane art collection. But could you just imagine being in there? Oh. But we saw Yves Saint Laurent's museum last weekend. We're not that far from where we were. We're just kind of right actually across the Seine. So this is the street that I mentioned, the Barbe de Joie. And this also has, there are a couple embassies on the street, including Tunisia. There's this one here. I mentioned about a gate. Look at this gate over here. This gate is pretty great. And look at this building back here. Ugh, this is a keeper. Could you just imagine? Could you imagine how much that costs to have that whole entire building? I'm sure now it's broken up, because at one point it was an apartment. In 1943, a woman named Hélène Rochat bought it. She and her husband had a perfume company, the Rochat Perfume Company. They lived here. She lived here till almost the end of her life. She had a huge 2-floor apartment that was designed by Georges Jaffry. She gave huge parties that she had here. After her husband died, she took up with a lover named Kim Destanville. They were together for over 20 years. He was 20 years younger than her. And after 20 years, she broke up with him because he was having an affair with their neighbor down the way, Pierre Berger, who was the partner of Yves Saint Laurent. Perfect cue and timing there, Kate. Right towards the building. Perfect. But look at how gorgeous that is. And then down the way here, not the one with all that gorgeous ivy in that door. That one is gorgeous, which should be this residence. But right next door, the neighbor, in 2003, one of the wealthiest men in the entire world, Bernard Arnault, had bought this and supposedly lives here, but I'm guessing he probably has about 30 residences in Paris, probably one in, each bourgeois arrondissement, because he is one of the richest men in the world. But when we get to the end of the street, it's very short. You can see the end. The right side of the street is where it is. A lot of the buildings were taken down and were more modern. And there's the Tunisian embassy. There we are. And also on this street is where, for a short period of time, the beautiful French actress that, I don't think she's really known at all in the United States. Romy Schneider lived at the end of the street. Nothing remains of that building anymore, but she lived on the street. There's always these like perfect, beautiful photos of her and Alain Delon. Gorgeous couple at one point. But when I mentioned about Henri Barbe de Joue, when you walk into the Louvre, to the old entrance where you would come in, and I know Cheryl mentioned when she had gone there, they changed it, in the 80s. But when you used to enter through the Denon wing, right there to the right of if you're looking at the pyramid and towards the Sully to the right, you would come in and then walk in and go to the left, and then you would go through, where the statues are, and up the staircase to Wing Victory. But there's a plaque there on the wall, and it mentions Henri's name, and then also the hero Bernardi who saved the Louvre. But that building right there, that modern, not exciting building, is where the building of Jean Levin, and we are right on the other side. Basically, they overlook the Musée Rodin garden. Could you imagine that amazing view? Yeah, June, she was huge in the 60s. I had a taxi driver one day tell me that I look like her, and I was like, I don't know. I mean, thank you very much, because she was beautiful, but I was like, oh, I don't know about that. But yeah, so you're looking over the Rodin over there. This used to all be part of a convent here as well. They kicked them out at one point, but that whole area, and it was at the very end of the street, is where Henri Barbe's father, and he lived. And it was just here on the right, and again, more of these modern buildings. That's where Romy lived. But the building that Jean Levin lived in was originally built for the Marquise Marie-Louise Arconti Visconti. She lived until 1923. She married the son of an Italian politician, Gianmartino Visconti. He died in 1876 of typhoid fever, and so she inherited his incredibly huge. Oh, bonjour. President. Thank you, Kate. She inherited an insane amount of money and homes all over Europe, including the one that was at number 16, which is where Jean ended up buying it. She sold it in 1920, but she had this amazing art collection as well. She held huge salons, very popular that ended before World War I, where all of like the names, Clemenceau and all of those guys in French politics would come to visit her. Jean Levin bought the building in 1920, and it was her friend Armand Albert Rateau who designed all of those rooms that you can see in the Musée des Arts Décoratifs, or as they tried to rebrand it, the MAD. It doesn't, nobody calls it the MAD. Nobody calls the Musée d'Art Moderne. Nobody calls it, all of these other initials are trying to give it to, but the only one is the Pompidou. The Parisians call it the Bourbeau, but they don't call it the Pompidou, but nobody's calling it by these initials, which is kind of funny. And there we are. We're back to the Ministry of Agriculture. And all those delicious things. Like it's almost fig season in Paris. Oh, I can't wait. Robin, you guys have to get some figs when you're there to have with some cheese, and oh, so good. But there we go. Look, it's only 9, it's, hour and 17 minutes. We actually did it. I thought we might be on that one Rue de Pablo the whole time. But thank you guys. And we'll get Kate on here too, to say hi. I'll turn mine back on. There's the lovely Kate. She's just happy it's not scorching hot today. But thank you guys so much. I'll here get turn Kate's on so she could say hi. I don't see her on the little thing. And thank you guys so much. And if you want to leave us a little tip, you could send it to my PayPal or Venmo, which is Claudine at ClaudineHemingway.com. We always appreciate that to help keep this going. So next week I will do it where it'll just be a little live chat with me, sharing all sorts of good stuff, especially because there's some really cool things opening pretty soon. So if you're heading to Paris here this fall, there's some really great exhibits that are going to be opening kind of mid-September. You know, they all come back, they're all gone right now. And then they all come back for, rentrée, September 1st. And then new things don't open till like almost the end of the month. You know, you got to ease them back into work a little bit. But there's some really cool things. So we'll do a chat next week. And then it's time for me to head out there too. And I can't wait. I can't wait to see you there, Kate.
I know, it's so soon. Sorry about the massive detour there. I haven't figured out how to unmute myself to talk to you since the update. I cannot find, like, since they've changed everything around, how that works. So.
I know they keep changing things on here, but if it worked,
yeah.
we just get to see Paris. So that's all that matters. Yeah. But thank you guys all so much. And it's so wonderful to see everybody. And then I'll see you next week, and Kate will be off to Germany. But when I get there, we'll do some more stuff so you can still keep seeing Kate.
Can't wait.
Thank you guys all so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks,
Merci.
Claudine. See you soon.
See you soon. A bientôt.